Hello, everyone. My name is Allie Virtue, and welcome to the Pre-Diet Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to help people get ahead who are trying to be healthy, teach you something about nutrition, lifestyle, all the strategies that I've learned in 8+ years in this industry, plus some other perspectives from our future guests. I am really excited for you to hear from our guest today. It is Devon Grogans. I have admired Devon for years now. We first did a podcast in 2020 together, and I think he has a fantastic perspective on nutrition, on lifestyle. He is an incredible human in general. So I'm thrilled for you guys to hear his perspectives, his takes on things. It was a fascinating conversation. Be prepared for me to nerd out a little bit, but there's so much value in this. He is such a high level, high functioning human. You are going to want to take notes, and there's definitely some common themes that you will see come up over and over again in what are the keys to his success. And he's a very successful human. So you are definitely going to want to listen to this. I didn't even get through all of my questions. I had so many questions for him. We'll definitely have to do another one at some point, but I hope you enjoy this podcast. Please leave a comment, follow the show on Spotify, subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a comment, leave a review, share this with a friend, post on social media. But otherwise, let's dig into the conversation with Devon, and thank you so much for being here. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here today, Devon. I am selfishly really excited to talk to you because we've done a couple speaking engagements, radio little bits before, and I've selfishly never got to ask the questions. And I usually love your responses. And I think you have a fantastic perspective and so many great analogies for people that I'm usually doing this number behind you. Like when we're talking, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So I'm really excited just to get to know you more because I've just loved your approach when I've gotten to see little snippets of it through health events in Salem. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here, and always a good time. I think, full circle. I think we did a podcast like COVID era.
COVID.
Way back when.
Way back. I don't think I had met my husband. I was in my first apartment. Yeah. Time flies. At least 6 years ago. So absolutely. I know a little bit about you, but I'd love to give you the opportunity to kind of introduce yourself because I think, you can search someone's social media, you can learn a little bit about them online, but how would you introduce yourself to someone if they didn't know anything about you?
So my name is Devon Grogans, IFBB Professional Men's Physique Bodybuilder, nutrition coach, and what I like to say is habit builder. I really focus on working with all of my clients on building successful habits to create long-term success, but husband, father, and 9-to-5 marketer. Really like 6 to 2, but
6 to 2, yeah. That's awesome.
That's typically, that's my elevator pitch.
I love it. I love it. So many different facets, and I think because obviously you have a professional Instagram with the professional bodybuilding. What is something that clients are maybe surprised? They might, hopefully not judge you based on being a bodybuilder, but I find a lot of people do. Like they think they're accidentally going to work out too hard and become a pro bodybuilder. That's, I know, a soapbox we could definitely step on. But what are some of the misconceptions that you've come across, when you first meet people and they find out you're a pro bodybuilder and that?
A lot of times it's, if it's at a social engagement, I'll get things like, oh, I didn't know you could eat that. Or, it's more often than not. Another really weird one is just because of the size, and I feel like I'm not even that big, but if I bump into somebody or I just say, excuse me, it's, I don't want to get in your way. It's like, I'm not going to beat you up. Like muscles don't make me inherently angry.
Yeah.
I get those probably the most. And then the third most is probably anytime, again, in a social event, it's people that either have something along the lines of, I used to look like that, I could look like that, or what do I need to look like that while they're on their 4th or 5th drink and eating dessert? It's like, well, you're going to have to cut something.
Got something to get a little bit of a difference. Yeah. Wow. That's funny. I have heard the thing of people scared of getting beat up just because you have muscles by one of my sweetest friends. And I swear she just really loves being in the gym. And so she's, and she's young. She's 21 to 23. And she does. She looks super, super strong and jacked. And I'm like, why would you ever think like just inherent
Yeah,
violence because
it's the
someone
odd
has muscles?
it's the oddest thing. It's just like
That's so
I don't
funny.
know. It happens more often than it should.
Yeah, that's really funny that you bring that up too. But yeah, that's a pretty funny misconception. But yeah, it's like there's other ways. Maybe because like comes from history of like people that were probably fit. It was like maybe boxing like decades
Could
and
be.
like 100 years
Yeah.
ago or whatever, or like you were a farm worker, but still nothing tied to yeah, like an affinity for fighting.
Yeah.
That's
I go to the
hilarious.
gym. I don't fight people. Like
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
it's the
that is
people
too
that
funny.
don't look like me you want to be worried about. I have a lot of MMA friends that look nothing like me, and you would probably never even know. And
Hmm.
those are, you know,
That is fascinating when you look at physiques, and I see that with CrossFit too. And I've heard that from friends of like, I don't want to get too bulky or I don't want to get too boxy. And I think there's something to that in the sense of like CrossFitters stack weight over their head. And so if you think about building a really strong pillar, like it's straight, it's not going to have like a tapered waist
yeah.
versus like another form of training. But it is fascinating. And I think that's probably something you notice as like a more advanced eye versus someone sees someone that's fit and they're like, oh, well, they do this because I'm familiar with
Hmm.
this versus it is fascinating how different athletes can look. Because yeah, a lot of the MMA fighters like they don't look that jacked. Like they get lean as lean as they probably need to be for weight, but they don't need to be excessively lean. That's not really helpful for performance.
No. And that's the other thing is like performance. When somebody trains for performance, it looks far different than when somebody trains for aesthetics.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a wild thought.
Absolutely. Have you trained for anything outside of bodybuilding, like for any other like yeah performance based thing before?
So I played baseball up through college, and so a lot of my training, even into like the whole first probably year or two of me competing, because it was all I knew was more performance style training. I'll never forget for my first bodybuilding show, I was running probably towards the end almost 6 miles a day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was still training like an athlete. I just wasn't necessarily fueling like one.
Mhm.
Um, Carbs, not even carbs, overall overall calories were probably in like the 17 to 1800 range, and I was easily, running 6 miles a day, training session. I was still playing like on a men's competitive softball team, uh rec league basketball. Like I was doing, so looking back at it now, I just laugh because I was literally running on fumes, but that was,
Yeah.
23 years old, not 37, and you
Hmm.
can kind of get away with some of that. But yeah, for a long time, a lot of the training I did was very CrossFit-esque before CrossFit was really big.
Hmm.
But multi-plane movements and explosive movements and less just kind of single direction type of training.
Awesome. What is your kind of background? Because you said college baseball. Is that the start of your kind of fitness journey?
Yeah, so I grew up playing baseball and football primarily. I played baseball pretty much year round and then played some football, took a break like elementary school through like fifth grade, wrestled from fifth grade until high school. And then I'll never forget, I walked in, I was all about wrestling. I loved it. And then, then I walked in to tryouts for high school. And I remember just opening the door and everybody was running around, getting ready, warming up. And the coach was like, you here for tryouts? I just kind of stood there for a second with a blank stare and I said, nope, and never wrestled again. I just decided I was done. So went back to playing football.
That's too
Uh,
funny.
af- After high school, had an opportunity to either head down to Salem and just play baseball or head to College of the Siskiyous and play baseball and football. But I wanted to stay fairly close. I was on a very high level traveling team. And so wanted to stick close to those guys. We went down and played in several World Series tournaments throughout California. Um, and then once baseball was over, I was kind of just trying to find like, what is my next thing? What do I want to do? And I was playing on three softball teams, one like beer league with my father-in-law, one semi-competitive, and then one that was like just under professional men's softball. And that was wild. Like I thought collegiate level baseball was high level. And don't get me wrong, we're talking about slow pitch softball here. But
Yeah.
I will never forget going to this tournament where there was it was like one of the top five ranked national teams, and I'm playing left field probably 30 feet from the fence. And this guy hits a line drive that came to me like I was playing baseball and standing at third base. Like I had never had a ball come to me that fast in my entire life in the outfield. And so that was crazy. But we had our first child, and then I kind of needed to scale back on all the extracurricular activities. And I just kind of found myself, I was always in the gym, performance wise, like I was saying, always trying to get faster, stronger. And a good friend of mine was a bodybuilder. And so I just kind of said, hey, tell me a little bit about this bodybuilding thing. I want to see how far I can push myself. And at the time, it was something that didn't really take away time from the family because I was in the gym anyways. So it was just, okay, let's get the nutrition part figured out, and that took me a long time. Yeah, you can't outrun a bad diet. It is very true. I tried for years, and it wasn't until bodybuilding when I really got a grasp on nutrition that's when I kind of fell in love with it. I did my first show, and I just remember not even the competing aspect, but just wow, this is what happens when you formulate the right nutrition with proper training. You can literally change and sculpt your body however you want it to look. And I'm somebody who is very artistic. I don't, the analytical side of my brain makes smoke come out of my ears, but I could sit down and draw and, color. And I've always been really drawn to different artistic modalities, and bodybuilding to me was one of those. And even though it is very analytical, there's still a lot of art that's involved with it. And that's exactly what bodybuilding is. I tell everybody, you can be a bodybuilder without competing. That just makes you a competitive bodybuilder. But anytime you're going in with an approach of, hey, I want my shoulders to look a little bit rounder. I want to bring this one aspect up of my body, or I want this to grow. Like that's all bodybuilding. That's exactly what it is. You're sculpting. Um, but to your point, that's kind of how I fell into it. Was a friend of mine was big into it. He was coaching quite a few other people that I knew, and got me set up. It wasn't the looking back, it wasn't the greatest of coaching experiences, but I always like to look at the silver linings. And so it taught me a lot of what not to do, both as a coach and a competitor. So it was still a win. But yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it, was just collegiate sports were done. Extracurricular sports were kind of winding down, and I just needed something that I could still kind of strive and set goals for without taking too much time away from, the family.
It's awesome. I was going to ask, yeah, how you got into it. Was it a friend that kind of became a mentor, or did you dive in right away with like hiring a coach?
Yeah, so my friend was my coach. I just knew he competed. A couple other people that I knew I started seeing them pop up at, photos of different shows and things like that. And so I reached out to him and just said, "Hey, what does it take to get on stage to look like that?" And it was a different experience. It's the one thing, and I just had a conversation with one of my clients this morning. Um, any aspect, whether it's bodybuilding or not, but when you truly go all in, uh, you get looked at different, and people notice discipline, dedication. It's the one thing you can't buy. You can buy a lot of things, but you can't buy. You can. I used to race cars a little bit, and a friend of mine, mentor, would always tell me, "How fast can you afford to go?" Because it truly is. The person with the deepest pockets is usually going to be the person with the fastest car in any type of racing. Um, Very competitive snowboarding. I did that a lot too, all throughout high school into college until I kind of was like, hey, I can't afford to get hurt. um, but same thing, like you can only get so good, but it's a big expense. If you've ever gone to the mountain, it costs money to do those things. Bodybuilding, in the sense of just having a fit and healthy body, is not something you can buy, because you could spend the money on the food, you can spend the money on coaching, you could spend the money on all the things, but if you're not dedicated to following through on all of it, it shows. And it's the first thing that people notice. When you walk into a room and you're a fit person, they notice you. You hold yourself different, and people are drawn towards that. Um, and so, yeah, it was very mind opening for me to understand that you can't cheat the process and you can't buy the process.
That's a fantastic point that I feel like we could shout from the rafters, that because a lot of people will, I mean, I even had a client that said, I don't know how much he paid for it, but he's like, I went to fat camp and for 2 weeks in Arizona and massive transformation, but there's only so much you
Mhm.
can get out of 2 weeks. And especially if they're
Yeah.
just focusing on the physical transformation, which is fine, that might be what you're paying for. But I mean, it takes time to learn all of those things and like practice them and like learn how to do those habits when you don't feel like it and learn how to do those habits when
Mhm.
things are easy. And I think that's hopefully reassuring in the sense of like whether you spend $30 on a nutrition plan or $30,000 on a nutrition plan, you can get potentially the same results. But if you can't afford all the accountability and all the resources, like you have to do more learning and time on your part. But hopefully that makes people realize that it's up to them on how it's successful. I mean, it can take some trials. I also hired a nutrition coach and had a kind of terrible experience, and so that was very educational, like, don't wanna do that.
Yep.
But, that's really fascinating. What was surprising to you going from generally fit, generally interested in nutrition to becoming a bodybuilder or saying, "Yes, I wanna step on stage?" What was kind of most surprising, and also what were some fundamental habits that you're like, "Oh, I'm glad I had this down before I jumped into that?"
Yeah, most surprising was just how, because so at that point in time, I'll back up a little bit. Um, I was a person that I was always active, very active, but like I said, you can't outrun a bad or outwork a bad diet. And I would just kind of eat whatever, and it showed. I was strong, I was fairly fast, but I look back now and I could have been so much better at sports, at everything that I did, had I had learned proper nutrition at a younger age. The number one thing that I learned was you can't cheat the process. You can tell your coach that you're doing something. Um, you can say all the right things, but at the end of the day, your body is your resume and it is going to either, green light or red light you. It's either going to say, hey, I'm speaking the truth, or no, I'm not. Um, and so that was probably the biggest like eye-opening type of thing early in my bodybuilding career. Um, I would say now that some things have changed, I can kind of talk about that. But that was kind of the most eye-opening. And then what was the other question? What was
I think, fundamental habits of, like, what you absolutely
oh,
needed to have locked in
yes, yes,
before
yes.
doing that.
Fundamental habits, and this has stayed true from day one until now, and it is preparation. If you are not prepared, especially when it comes to bodybuilding, um, you will fail. It's not a fly by the seat of your pants type of thing. You have to be spot on. You have to have your food, your clothes. Like even now, I have a 5 a.m. client that we meet at the gym. I have very few in-person clients. He's one of them, but I'm up at 3:15. I'm out the door by usually 4:15. Um, but everything's ready to go. I set everything out the night before. Anything that I need to take with me that's not food goes in my truck, so it's already in there. I literally wake up, make my coffee, take my vitamins, get a few things together, grab my stuff, and I'm out the door. And that's all my clothes for the gym. That's my food for the day. It's everything. And if I don't do that, it's another hour, hour and a half to try and put all that together, figure it out. So everything is done the night before for the next day. When I get deep into prep, everything is done usually on Sunday for the entire week ahead. I mean, I'm setting out a week's worth of clothes. I'm laying out all my food in the fridge. They're all stacked on top of each other, meal one, two, three, four. So everything is just a simple grab and go process. It makes it very simple, so you don't even have to think. So yeah, that would probably be the biggest thing is just making sure that you are prepared, and it transfers into everything.
You can't cram for that test. I mean, people
No,
say they every now and then want a crash diet, but, like, for that level of accountability of, like, stepping on stage, that is pretty there's no faking that. That you
yeah,
either
I
did your
mean we're
homework well in
talking.
advance or not.
Exactly. And we're talking, I'm measuring rice. And if I'm supposed to have 250 grams of rice and 251 hit the bowl, I'm literally picking out rice until it's 250 grams on the dot.
Mhm.
And you can argue that, yeah, it probably doesn't matter, but you're talking about a sport
Yeah.
where it's percentages. And if that's a half a percent, well, a half a percent over weeks, over months adds up. And when somebody's hitting 100% and you're only at 98, when you get down to 7, 8, 10%, that's going to show in your physique. So,
Absolutely. I think, and this is not, I need to be careful how I word this because I don't want this to come across as like it's nowhere near intent for like body shaming or anything like that. But when you see someone who has, because I see a lot of, we network with a lot of business people, and I kind of think of myself, even though I'm only a business of one, as like a corporate athlete. And
yeah,
I think because I'm big into like how you think about yourself is also how you take care of yourself. And so I have to perform for my business. And I think a lot of times we totally put ourselves, as far as like a physical health being, on the back burner. When we think of like the corporate athlete, I think a lot of times people don't make that connection, or they just think that they're not an athlete anymore because they don't play like high school sports. And I see so many people really struggle to like take that identity on, and then I feel like that makes it harder to like go to the gym because they're like, I'm not a gym goer, I'm a mom, I'm just this. And it's just like, but you can be both. You can have different aspects of like who you are. And but I do, when I see someone has like, and this is kind of how I pick like my mentors. Like when I hired a business coach, I didn't go for like the super, sorry, but like jacked guy on the stage. He didn't have a family. He did like, this was his like his sole focus. I hired the gal that had like 3 kids and her husband's in the military and she's doing this business. And I'm like, she's got her shit together. She knows how to do it all, so to speak. And you know, that's from looking outside. I don't see everything that's going on the inside, but I think that's really important for people to remember, is like, just because you might think of yourself as just a stay-at-home mom, it doesn't mean that you can't, have other aspects of your life increase or decrease as kind of the phases need to. But I definitely see that, like, maybe it's just like an extra notch of admiration when someone's crushing it in business, but they're also able to take care of themselves. Because I think it's kind of a secret badge of honor of like, I put everyone first before myself, and I don't take care of my health, versus like, I would love to make the other more popular. Instead, you get the kind of, oh, she's a little bit crazy, or she's a little bit neurotic because she gets up really early to go to the gym, and or he's, they kind of put it towards, I mean, obsessive behavior, and I don't think that is. And also, to your point with the rice, someone's going to hear that and be like, oh wow, that's taking it a little far. But like you said, it's a sport. And that was one of the questions I had for you, was like, what's the line? Because you coach lifestyle clients that people just want to
yeah,
get healthy, right?
oh
And
yeah,
competitors. Like, what's that
yep.
line for you as far as like the difference between stage and like, yeah, 251 grams of rice, not a big deal, or it is.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like when I'm not prepping for a show, it could be 256. I don't care. I usually I operate very similar to my lifestyle clients. They usually will get a range. So it's, hey, let's stay within 180 to 195 or 200 grams of protein. Let's stay within 200 to 225 grams of carbs. Fats usually will keep, a little bit tighter, usually about a 5 to 7 gram window, just because it's so easy to overeat those. But when it comes to lifestyle clients, there's a lot more flexibility because I do understand that's not their main focus. And it doesn't need to be that strict when the goal is to just live a healthier life. One of the clients that I'm working with right now, actually, we started with just a local meal prep company, and he was in a position where he could afford to just supplement 3 meals a day with that company. And I said, cool, let's just get you on whole foods. So we removed sugary drinks, we got, the fast food out of there, and it was just supplement with whole foods, 3 meals a day. He did that for about 4 months. He dropped 45 pounds on top of weightlifting. Then it became, okay, now I want you to learn, because it's all about building habits. Like, this is not sustainable. Yes, it's great that you can afford it, but you don't need to. Um, let's work on, pulling one meal out. I want you to make one meal a day. And then I gave him, he had parameters to stick within too, but again, it was about a 250 calorie swing. So it was 2250 to about 2500 calories that we were looking to budget. And so everything was a range. I told him some days you're going to be a little bit hungrier, some days you won't. And so on the days you're hungrier, it's okay to get some more carbs in, especially if you're training that day. So yeah, a lot more flexibility. Whereas with my competitive clients, it is basically, this is where our targets are. You need to hit these.
Absolutely. That's fascinating, because I think everybody puts themselves, whatever their kind of preconceived notion is, they just put themselves in that bucket. And it's like if our, I guess, I mean, I always say this stuff is a practice and there's no like final exam. You're
No.
signing up for a final exam. The
Yes.
clients that are lifestyle, we just need to keep practicing this stuff and like keep developing our skills, but very, very different. Because I can't think of really a life scenario where there's a final exam.
No, and on occasion, it maybe if somebody's like, "Hey, I got a photo shoot," or I'm getting married. But
Mhm.
even then, it's not nearly as it's like, "Hey, let's tighten this up a little bit." It doesn't still need to be that strict because you don't need to be sub 10% for your photo shoot. And even for the people that are looking at doing photo shoots, depending on where they're at, and I get a few every year, "Hey, I got this photo shoot." Um, Depending on where their physique's at, I say, hey, we can do one of two things. We can just continue doing what we're doing and just, slowly remove calories, or we can treat it like it is a bodybuilding show, but just stop to the point where you would be about 8 weeks out, 6 weeks out. Some people like that added, like, oh, I get to kind of see what this is like. Most of them are like, all right, I wouldn't want to continue to do that. And for the most part, most of them are like, hey, let's just do what we're doing because it's easy. I don't have to think about it. We'll just keep slowly, lowering calories and increasing our activity if needed and get there. So,
That's
but
awesome.
it is funny. And then to your point, and there was one thing I wanted to make sure that I touched on is in the corporate world, I think there's something to be said, especially like we are our own business card. And no, you don't have to walk around jacked at 10%.
Yeah.
But even if fitness is not your business, when I was in corporate sales, I would go into a sales meeting with a friend of mine who was not that fit. I mean, he wasn't severely out of shape, but he was not fit. And inevitably, 9 times out of 10, the conversation would be directed more towards me than it would him. And I think people just genuinely gravitate towards those who have a sharper physique because again, it's not something that you don't just wake up and have it. You can't buy it. So it shows dedication, discipline. And if this person is willing to look the way they look for themselves, what are they going to do for me and my business? And I think that's something to be said outside of just the fitness realm. And again, it doesn't mean you have to be shredded, but just having a certain level of uh, fitness and how you carry yourself speaks volumes when you walk into a room full of people that don't.
Absolutely. And it's such a fine topic. And, people that know us know our intentions with this conversation. And it is just wanting the best for people. Because my husband's a great example, is people probably wouldn't know much about his story, and I'm trying to drag him onto the podcast at some point, but,
Yeah.
he'll fluctuate like 10 to 15 pounds and no one will notice, but it's how he feels, and for
Hmm.
him also, he owns his own business and has 2 employees, and he has to function well to really be in the top of his game and, like, mentally sharp to talk to these people. He's in the finance world, and if any little thing, granted now we're, I would say, very advanced healthy people in that sense of like we're fine tuned a lot of things. And so even him, it's not even just being slack, just like I think he was having like some snacks after dinner and didn't really think of it. I didn't notice anything. I didn't think he looked different, but he's like, I think I'm like 10, 15 pounds heavier than like what I would like. I was like, really? I didn't notice anything. But he's like, yeah, I'm not sleeping as good. My mental game isn't as sharp. I don't like how my clothes fit. I used to like just those little things. And it has nothing to do with like, obviously my preferences as his wife. It's like he wasn't feeling better, and for him, and same for me, if I'm not able to like speak to my clients and articulate what I need, the information I need to, it's really frustrating and you're kind of grinding uphill all day at work. Versus if you are really healthy, I think so many people don't realize how good you can feel when you just take care of your health. Like weight loss aside, aesthetics aside, I mean, just how good you can feel and how much more productive you can be. And even take that out of the work context of things, then you have more time and like quality of mind for your family when you're done working. So it's not even all about work, but I think I wish more people knew how good they can feel instead of being just like, I guess this is how it is.
Yeah, and that's a big buy-in that I try to get for a lot of my lifestyle clients. And I tell a lot of people, you don't realize how bad you feel until you understand what feeling good feels like. That's the people that eat McDonald's. Like they don't feel like trash, but I promise you, remove and I shouldn't say McDonald's, fast food. People that gravitate towards a lot of fast food or just high
Mhm.
inflammatory foods, processed foods, you remove a lot of that, and oh, all of a sudden my knees don't hurt anymore. Oh, I have more energy. I have less brain fog. It's easier to wake up in the morning. I can play with my kids. I was at a work meeting and I didn't feel like I was going to fall asleep. Like, it encompasses everything. And then it's funny to watch when they do go back to, not even go back, but maybe they go out with friends or something, and they have a meal that they haven't had in a long time, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I felt almost hungover. I feel like trash. My knees started hurting again. I just felt really sluggish. Like, yeah, because you feel good now and your body understands what feeling good is. And when you put that in your body, and it's not to say that we can't all go out and enjoy, foods, but when you get to a certain point, you start noticing those differences that you never noticed before because that was your normal.
Absolutely. And I love to just like, because I think a lot of people expect us to be like, I don't know, you're a bad person. You ate at fast food. And I just usually sit there quietly and just like, how do you feel? People are like, I feel like trash. I'm like, I don't really want that for you. Like, my job is to help you feel better. And that food isn't really helping in this scenario. If it's your birthday and that's what you really want, like you're an adult with money in your pocket, like go buy it. That's fine. But if you don't like how you feel afterwards, that's the problem I have with it.
Yep. And to your cookie point, there are posts that you made the other day when it was like, how many cookies could you believe me? Go on everybody here watching, go on my Instagram, go back probably a year or so. I would eat, and this is not even an exaggeration, almost every Sunday, my diet allotted for two half to 1 pound we're talking 2 pounds of cookies. They're probably, yeah, the size of a baseball. I would eat two of those and a half pint of ice cream every Sunday, and I was still losing weight.
Mhm.
But I had to drop it because I would wake up Monday and my digestion felt wrecked. I felt really slow to get up. It was hard to do cardio. And so I pulled it back to like maybe one every other week. And then now I don't really introduce them quite as much as I did, but I could eat them and I was still making progress. And for most people, they're like, well, why would you stop? Because I didn't feel good. Like, I got tired of forcing myself to wake up and not, oh, I gotta go do cardio, and I could feel it still sitting in my stomach, and I didn't even want to eat until noon the next day, and I wasn't stuffed. Like, I wasn't like when I ate them, it's not like I'm sitting there like, oh, I should stop. I probably, in all honesty, could have eaten 4 pounds of cookies. I still probably right now could eat 4 pounds of cookies. I just don't like the way that my body feels after eating even a half pound of cookies. So I had to stop. It was just too much sugar and too much. Um, processed food. And to your point, it's just, it's not always the external. How do we feel internally? And those were some things that I had to remove and change, at least in frequency for me, because it didn't make me feel well.
Absolutely. The way I kind of stay motivated, so to speak, as far as like to limit that stuff is usually mental health. And I don't really
Mhm.
identify as a person that really has a hard time with like anxiety or anything, but I just noticed like, I think it was actually on my birthday and I just had a slice of carrot cake, one of my favorite things. And
Yes.
I just noticed I'm like, "Why am I so anxious? Like, it's my birthday. I should feel fine." Like, there's no reason to feel bad about this, and I think it was just kind of the sugar rush, and I didn't really like it, and that was really eye-opening of, like, I definitely don't wanna feel like this all the time, and when I
Yeah.
have to function really well, that is just, like, black and white, not helpful food versus, yeah, maybe in a smaller amount, I can usually not feel like that, but that's more motivating to me than probably anything else. Because if inside your head is uncomfortable, like, where else are you gonna go?
Yeah, and there's nothing worse than eating something and then starting to feel like, oh, I shouldn't have had that for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Um, because there's times where I've done that, and it's not, I shouldn't have done that because I'm worried about how it's going to make me look. It's, I shouldn't have done that because now I feel like trash and I got to sit in this. Whether it's digestion or whether, I'll never forget one time I ate a 1 pound cookie. And my boys and I, we do these cookie reviews where we'll order some and then we'll try different ones. And this was before even my youngest son was born. We had tried one. It was like a brown sugar Pop Tart cookie. I don't know how much. It was a brown buttered brown sugar Pop Tart cookie, and it was amazing. But never in my life, like, I wish I would have had a CGM, because
It's like
5 minutes after eating it, like, we turned the camera off, and my son, I'll never forget, he goes, "Dad, are you okay?" And I'm just like staring straight ahead, and I just start pouring sweat. And I was like,
Whoa.
I was like, no, I don't feel too good. And I walked over to the sink and like vision was blurry. And oh, yeah. And it took probably
Oh
10
wow.
minutes. I just remember sitting there like, because it was so much sugar that my
Wow.
body just like went hyperglycemic.
Mm.
And it was shocking. And I'll never forget after that, I was like, all right, I need to be conscious about just because I can eat it and it doesn't show on the scale or it doesn't show in the physique doesn't mean that I
Yeah.
need to eat it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's fascinating. Yeah, that would have been really interesting. Not really an experiment you probably want to sign up for, but yeah, like plug a
I'd run it
CGM in
back.
and
I'd be open to
yeah,
CGM
do
now.
it. That would be really fun. We should go out to eat and like, yeah, have little CGMs and see what they do. But
There we
that's
go. See that
fascinating.
that we should do. What
That could
that
be
would be a
fun.
fun like do a series of a couple of places of like see
Mhm.
what will spike our glucose the most.
I wore one for like 3 months,
I
and it was
remember that.
annoying how easily it would spike. It made me want to do like a hypertrophy program. I was like, I need more muscle to like accommodate some more carbs in my life. So, yeah, it would be really fascinating. And especially doing it in a way that doesn't make people scared of carbs.
Yeah.
Because what I learned in that 3 month period, and I learned so much in the first week alone, and it just reiterated every single textbook strategy for managing your blood sugar, like go for a walk a little bit after eating. And like we had Thai food, and I had, I didn't overeat. It wasn't a ton of carbs. There's probably some sugar in the peanut sauce for sure. But the fact that we having that and then just sitting our butts on the couch, like it went up, I don't know, like 170. But also, I saw that, and the giant nerd that I am, I just stood up and did squats for 10 minutes, and it was cool to see it come back down.
Yeah.
So it's just
I'll,
fascinating.
I've done that. I'll do that at home. So Sundays are still my high carb days. They're just a lot less cookies involved now. But I will check my blood glucose usually an hour and a half to 2 hour postprandial.
Mhm.
And I know it's not nearly as accurate as having a CGM because I can't quite see when it ebbs and flows. But I can at least get snapshots. And so sometimes, like last week, it was 4 meals. Each meal was about 150 to 200 grams of carbs, and so I would try different things after each meal just to see what affected bringing it down quicker. And so I think after meal one, it was like, I think I did 100 push ups, and then I went and tested it, and that dropped it a little bit. The other one was I went on a walk, and the one that worked the best was a combination of walking and weightlifting. And all I did was I have a gym at the end of our driveway in our shop, and it's probably 600 steps usually. Um, so a couple hundred feet. And so I walked down to the shop, walked back, walked down again, and then went into the shop and just grabbed 20-pound weights. And I did 20 dumbbell overhead presses and then 20 bent over barbell rows and walked back. And it dropped at like 50 points or something. Yeah, it was pretty significant. But again, that's, snapshot. So it's not as accurate as a CGM, but I've been leaning towards getting one just to kind of see, more real time what those types of effects do. But to your point, the fact of the matter is just movement in general post carb consumption definitely helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just simple walking worked really well for us.
Yeah,
So after like, I think I got it around my mom's birthday. So we bought over like a sampler of cake, and I was like, well, this should be fun.
yeah,
And sure enough, yeah, I'm like, well, I need another walk, guys. Anybody else
yeah.
want to take me for a walk? But I think that would be fascinating. And distilling that, yeah, in a way that people aren't scared of it. Cause I could have a boatload of rice in the morning after a workout and then go take care of my horses and nothing. It was super,
Yep.
super even. And post workout, more sensitive to carbs, going out for a walk, doing some mild, very mild labor, took care of it. It was totally fine.
Yeah.
But versus sitting at my desk after moderate or a lot of carbs didn't work as well. So,
Yep. I
but
picked up this little walking pad back here that's on the wherever.
oh,
There we
nice.
go, right there. Um, this guy. And so usually I'll walk around my office, but being that it's been like snowing and 40 degrees, I have a
Mhm.
sit stand desk. So I'll just raise it up and then
Mhm.
I'll walk for 5, 10 minutes
That's awesome.
after I eat, which has been really nice. But it's crazy how well that works for digestion too.
I was just about to say the same thing. Like I just feel better.
Mhm.
My husband's luckily very disciplined. I think it's like 8 o'clock and yeah, freezing cold or whatever. And he gets home and he's like, ready for a walk? I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm ready for
No.
dinner. He's like, if we eat, we're not going to walk. I was like, fine, we can walk first. But It's yeah, definitely helpful to have the accountability buddies or options to make it still happen.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Let's see. I was trying to think, so many questions come to mind, but what are some of, you mentioned just how much fitness has kind of played a role in building discipline in other areas of life. What's something that you've taken from your kind of fitness life, fitness journey into work, professional, or that same lesson from fitness into your professional life that's really served you in other areas?
Percent preparation. When I met my wife, I mean, my entire life up until I started bodybuilding, I was fly by the seat of my pants, like, oh, I'll figure it out. What are we doing today? Whatever, whatever happens, happens. Um, and to a degree, I'm still like that, but I've become much more regimented, and it's carried over and just helped in volumes for everything that I do for my personal business, for the clinic that I work at. I mean, everything is notes and uh, checklists and calendars, and I have to have something to work off of. Um, Otherwise, I also have severe ADHD or AD, whatever they decided to combine both of them into now. So I'm just squirrel, if not. So
Yeah.
every morning I come in and I have a checklist kind of on my phone that I'll work off of, but then I'll put down um, usually four main things that I need to get done, three that are involved with work, and then one that's usually like a personal. And then I make sure that I get all those checked off along with whatever I do for the day. But really, structure has been the biggest thing that it has helped me with. And that's one of the biggest things that I try to help all my clients with, because I find that tends to be the weak link for a lot of
Yeah.
people, is not necessarily the cooking of the food or the eating of the food or the workouts. It's doing it consistently, but in a way where it's almost like running on autopilot in the background instead of it being the main window on your computer. And that's really where uh, I think people live and die. When it's your main window and that is the program running, that everything else is kind of tucked behind, it's hard to make space for anything else. But once you get to a point where you can almost just unconsciously do it, and it just becomes that little program that runs in the background while you're still doing everything else you need to do, that's when a lot of people see success, and that's when I started to see success. So definitely, structure would be the number one thing.
That's a great way to put it, is it's just operating in the background. Because I
Yeah,
agree, like one of the, I'll call them green flags, I guess, of like a client's working really well and they've got this for hopefully for life, right? Or at least for a really long time, is that it's not stressful anymore versus you hear
yeah,
from the client of like, I did it, I did everything. And you can just hear the stress in their voice because it took every ounce of their motivation and discipline that week to get the stuff done. I'm like, I'm still nervous for you at that
yeah.
point. But how do you? Because I find that definitely one of the biggest challenges. And one of the things I think I'm usually pretty good at is like figuring out the practical elements, but every person is different as far as what keeps them on track. What are some of the strategies that have helped a lot of your clients like create that kind of operating system for themselves?
So a lot of it is, prepare the night before. You got two options. You can watch 2 hours of Netflix, or you can watch an hour of Netflix and then be 2 hours ahead for tomorrow because you spent an hour getting everything
Yes.
ready the night before. I tell a lot of my clients, and again, I don't expect people to do things the way I do, but I've been in that space. I was the person that was overweight and would tell myself, I'll never look like that, or oh, my body type just isn't made to be like that. Like I've told myself all those lies. And so I come from the same place that they do. I wasn't the guy that was like always skinny and just needed to put muscle on. No, I was the guy that was athletic but overweight and, crossed his arms at the pool and did all those things. So for me, I tell people don't stop. When you stop, you die. And that's in the sense of like when I get home, my step breakdown for the day is I'll usually get 4 to 5 thousand steps because that's when I do my cardio first thing in the morning. And then I usually get somewhere between 3 to 5 thousand steps throughout the next 9 hours. And then I get about 3 to 4 thousand steps in from the moment I get home to the moment I go to bed, because I am moving. I'm doing dishes. I'm doing whatever it needs to do. And it's not like nervous. It's become a point where I come home and I talk to my boys while I'm making their lunches for the next day. Cause my wife's, getting her workout in, and then I'm cooking dinner, and then when dinner's done, I'm doing dishes. Then I'm prepping my food for tomorrow. Then I'm prepping her food for tomorrow. And then when everything's said and done, I finally will sit down, and there's about 2 hours left in the day. And for some people, they would look at that and say, "Wow, you're crazy." But what's the alternative? I come home and I sit down and I'm watching TV while I'm talking to my kids, or I'm moving around while I'm talking to my kids, and then I go play with my kids. How hard is it to get back up when you've already sat down, especially for those that have kids and your kids like, "Dad, Mom, come play with me." And you're like, "Oh, Dad just sat down." If you're already moving, it's easy to be like, "Yeah, we'll go outside for a few minutes. I'll go play catch with them for 20 minutes, and then I come right back in." But the minute I sit down is the minute I don't want to get back up. So I tell all my clients, do not like get what you need to get done and rest at the end of the day. Don't try to split it up and rest at the beginning and then try and get moving again, because all of that momentum is gone. Now you're tired. It's late in the evening. It's easy to tell yourself, "I'll do it later." Later never comes. You fall asleep. Then you wake up and then you're, an hour behind.
Such a fantastic way to put it, of having 2 hours of watching TV, or you can have 1 hour and then get 2 hours ahead the next day, because just a little preparation does go so far. And that's one of the things I was probably most excited to talk to you about, because we don't have kids yet. And I mean, it was very apparent yesterday, like we both worked like at least 12 hours days. And I'm like, how does this work with small humans? I don't know what that looks like, but because you do have two kids and you are a professional bodybuilder, you work a regular job, and you have your own businesses as well. How do you and your wife manage all of those things?
First of all, my wife's a rock star. She picks up a ton. When I'm in prep, like anytime, I've gotten a lot of questions, "When's your next show? I'm like, I don't, whenever my wife lets me." And people laugh at that. And it's not because I need my wife to sign my permission slip. It's because when I'm in prep, a lot of weight of our family falls on her. Because again, when you're in prep, a gram of rice is a gram of rice, just like my workout is my workout. And as much as I can try and move and shuffle and do all the things to try and make it fit in the schedule, the fact of the matter is that doesn't always happen. So sometimes she's taking one or both of the kids to both of their sports things, so I can either push my workout back or get with a client or do whatever it takes. Now it's been a lot easier now that we have a gym at home. But she's an absolute rock star. And I mean, when you get to the last couple of weeks, and don't get me wrong, like I will do as much as I can for as long as I can, but there gets to be a point where she will even say, like, "Just go sit down. Like, I'll take care of this. Go sit down." So having a partner that works well with you is a huge asset. Even just when I'm not prepping, hey, we'll trade off days. Like last night, she took our youngest to basketball so I could onboard two clients, and then I'll take him to basketball on Thursday so that she can kind of do whatever, whether it's read a book, relax. And so it's just having that trade off where nobody keeps score. It's, "Hey, if you need me to do this, I got it. If I need you to do this, I got you," whatever the case is. So that's probably the number one thing, is just having a spouse that is bought in to understand that you guys are working together, and it's not a, "Well, you got to do this, so I get to do this," which I see a lot in clients, and especially when one client is well on. I'm sure you've probably seen this too. When one client will sign up and the spouse doesn't really want to, but then the client that signed up starts making progress, and then the other client pretty much, and even sometimes intentionally, sabotages, like, "Oh, I want to go to dinner." My wife is, they'll tell me something like, "My wife has never wanted to go out to dinner every week, and now she wants to go out to dinner every week or twice a week, or she's bringing food home when we would always cook." And it's just like, oh, okay. So yeah, just being on the same page. It makes everything a little bit easier, because I can't say it's always easy, but it makes it a little bit easy.
Right. What are some of the conversations, or like either tips, or call it like conversation prompts, you could give clients in that scenario?
Oh yeah. I,
Because like we're not relationship counselors, but
yeah,
yeah, it's like,
we
got
are,
you
but
can
we
you can
aren't.
see the cracks. Right. That I've had several clients say, like, "This sounds a lot like my therapy sessions." I was like, well, that's not my scope of practice, but
Yeah.
like everything around nutrition, like if we can make everything around nutrition easier, nutrition gets really simple. Like we
Hmm.
want the people to learn the basics of nutrition, but honestly, if like your stress is managed, like we have time, like all of those other resources are like dialed in and available, it gets a lot easier. But the relationship part can be really difficult. And like I said, I don't have kids. And so, like, managing all of that, how do you help some clients through that?
Yeah, I think the number one, well, two things, 1A and 1B. 1B, I'll start there. I would put slightly below 1A. 1B is falls back to preparation. Preparation is key to everything. If you can be prepared, it makes it so much easier. When we do wrestling tournaments, my wife and I will usually the night before. So wrestling tournaments, for those that don't know, we have to be there by 6 a.m. for weigh-ins. Wrestling doesn't even start until 8 or 9 a.m. And then usually wrestling ends anywhere from noon to 2. So you don't know, depending on how big the meet is, how many kids there are, all these things. So uh, Friday nights, my wife will usually make breakfast for herself and the boys, get everything ready because they won't eat until after they weigh in. And then I'll make and pack lunches. And so we work really well as a team. But again, it's being prepared, like having all of our food ready. And a lot of times it's simple foods. For them it's high energy peanut butter and jelly, fruit, turkey slices, things like that we can just kind of grab and go, or they can eat while they're hanging out. And then I'll pack my food and her food, and that helps a ton because then the day of, and whether it's a wrestling meet or whether it's vacation or whatever, having that prepared just makes everything go a lot easier rather than trying to do it all the day of. A lot less stress, right? We want to keep that stress down. But then I would say 1A is something that took me a long time to figure out throughout my bodybuilding career. And it's something, there's not many things that I would say if I could go back and do different, I would, or go back and change, but this is definitely one of them. And it's doing check ins with your spouse. A lot of our clients, and like for me, and I'm sure if you have a coach, we all do weekly check ins. And it's, a lot of times it's biofeedback stuff. Hey, what's going well? What didn't go well? Where could I have picked up better? And the last two preps that I did, it was something that I took to my wife and said, hey, every week, um, I want to do a check in with you because
Yeah.
when things start to slowly slip, you don't realize it until there's this big gap. And then all of a sudden, it's my spouse is mad at me. Why is your spouse mad at me? Well, I don't know. And then you hear from the spouse, well, he's at the gym for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And before it was only 45 minutes. Now, and it's all these things that before they didn't even realize it because it's just slowly gotten bigger and bigger. And so with her, it was every Friday, I would just touch base. Hey, what areas do you feel are going really well? What areas do you see I can be doing better in? Is there anywhere that you feel like I'm kind of letting things slide? And just having those conversations nipped so many arguments early on to where it was like, hey, your attitude's been great, even though I know your energy's really low. But I also noticed that like you haven't been playing with the kids as much. And I know that you're tired, but they've been saying like, hey, we want to do more stuff with that. Okay, cool. I'll make sure that, I pick that up and we start doing XYZ or whatever the case may be. But I think just getting ahead of that. So having a conversation with your spouse on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and even if it's not fitness related, like this is something that we do now. Even like once a quarter, we'll sit down and we'll be like, cool, how are finances looking? Like, what are our goals over the next 6 months? What did we do well over the last 3 months? What areas can we pick up in? What do we want our main focus to be? And so just doing something like that with your spouse, having like a board meeting, so to speak,
Yeah.
um, helps out so much. So those are the two 1A, 1B things that I would definitely recommend doing.
That's genius. That's so smart. Just such a good habit. Because I think it's really easy to kind of misconstrue, like, oh, he's just annoying today, or he's just annoyed,
Mhm.
sorry. And versus like, maybe he didn't sleep well. Maybe I didn't sleep well. Maybe my reactions are a little shorter or snippier than they need to be, type of thing. Versus, yeah, if you always come at it kind of from compassion, that's really smart. And scheduling it, everybody, I mean, any new habit, I think it's very reasonable to take time and need reminders to come back to it and make sure you're staying consistent with it. But that's so smart. Definitely going to use that
To
one.
the
Good
last
job.
the other thing I'll leave people with,
Yeah.
if you can do it, it's been a little bit harder for us, especially with sports, because sports take up
Hmm.
infinite time. But the 222 rule, I read this in a book somewhere and it's amazing. So every 2 weeks, or yeah, 222. Every 2 weeks you go on a date. Every two
Mm.
months you go on a 2-day getaway. So like Friday, Saturday, and then every 2 years you plan a full vacation. Um, and ideally and it doesn't have to, you don't have to go to Greece or Rome. Like even if your 2-day getaway is the beach, or maybe it's just you go somewhere for a day and come home, and then you go some, a Saturday, Sunday. If you can't afford to go stay somewhere, that's fine too. Um, but just it's focusing on making the time. So every 2 weeks is a date night, every 2 months is a brief getaway, and then every 2 years is a full vacation. And
It's
if you
really
can
good.
plan for that, it just makes sure that you guys are always, doing
Mhm.
something together, because it is hard with kids. I mean, life's
Absolutely.
hard in general. It is harder with kids.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that was one of the things, and I know we're coming up to time, but I mean, we
Yeah.
could probably have a part two, three, four, five, six. But that was also one that I'm really conscious of how I talk about food in general in front of clients, but also especially young ears. What's something that's been really top of mind as you take nutrition to another level with bodybuilding, but also like kind of instill or give your boys the best chance of having just a great relationship with themselves, fitness, food, all of that. What's kind of top of mind for you?
Yeah, so two things. Well, one thing my wife and I never do is talk about how food, well, we talk about how food affects our body, but to the first point you made, it's how our body feels. Um, One thing I try not to do is we won't say like, oh, if I eat that, I'm gonna get fat type of thing. So we try to keep those types of conversations out. It's more so if I eat that, I'm not gonna feel well. They've asked, how come you weigh your food? And a lot of times I tell them to make sure that I'm eating enough for my goals. I want to make sure that if dad wants to be strong or mom wants to be strong, and in order to be strong, I have to make sure I'm eating enough protein and I'm getting enough carbohydrates in. And if I just eyeball it, usually I can get pretty close, but when I weigh it, I know I'm getting exactly what I need. And so like, oh, okay, they get that. And then something that I heard that I share with a lot of younger kids, and I've told my kids, and understanding how macronutrients, work, because they're at the point now, they're 10, soon to be 11 in a couple of weeks, and 8. And so they're very curious about nutrition, and they're starting to notice different bodies, and how do I make, my stomach flat? I'm like, well, you don't need to worry about that. You're not fat, but it's more so, you just need to keep moving, move more, and make sure that the food you're eating is whole food, which it is. But when they're asking, what are macronutrients? I said, well, they're proteins, carbs, and fats. And I think I might have mentioned this at the event, but I tell them protein is what, you know, helps build your muscle. It's what's going to make you or give you the ability to go run and play on the playground. Okay, carbohydrates give you energy. So that's your fuel. That's what's going to allow you to run on the playground for the entire time during recess without getting tired. And then fats help your brain so that while you're running around, you can see and focus what you're doing so you don't inadvertently, well, for them, accidentally run into a pole. So and they're like, oh, okay. So I just try to make it fun for them to where it's
Yeah.
not so, you have to eat like this, and just try to make it to where we're eating because we want it to make our performance better, not because it's going to make our visual body look better.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And you're absolutely right. You can totally make it fun or goofy or something that sticks in their head and in a positive way. But I wish that I don't obviously work with kids directly, but I think if we can give people, yeah, a really good relationship with food and just like kind of the basics, just some information without a lot of emotion attached. I mean, I think the sky's the limit as far as changing how people think about food. And then hopefully this stuff just becomes a lot easier and we don't need as much motivation. But wow, so many things. We'll definitely have to have a part two because I
I would love
could,
to.
yeah, yeah. So many questions, so many questions. I love this. But what is something you are excited about in your business this next year? Whether that be a coaching program, is there anything that you're looking forward to in particular?
Yeah, so two things. One is I just started, I call it the Next Collective. I'm getting ready to launch that. So right now, everything I do is on a one-on-one basis. I wanted to open up something that was either a little bit more entry level, or B, um, kind of like a legacy level for those that have been with me for a while and maybe just need a little bit less hand holding. And it's community driven. So rather than, another Facebook page. It's on Telegram. And so it's a private group where every day we share our wins, we share our goals. We talk about, every week there's usually one focus. We'll do a 20-30 minute Q&A and then just kind of share some different things. So people are learning and experiencing and working together. It's more habit based, like, hey, these are the habits that we want to work towards rather than these are your macro targets that you need to hit. So it's for those that are really just trying to get their toe in the water, and maybe aren't quite ready for one-on-one coaching, or maybe they just want to join a community, live a better life, and have less worry and thought about having to be so specific in their food. So that's one thing that should be launching here in the next couple of weeks. I'm just getting the last few pieces put together in that. And then I've partnered with All In Meals, which is a local meal prep company. So I am their head coach. You can go to their website, www.allinmeals.com. They have amazing food. I've worked with some other meal prep companies in the past, and they are by far the best. Super fresh. The owner's amazing. But they have a coaching program too, separate from the meals. So you don't have to purchase the meals in order to get coaching. But in coaching, it operates very much like my personal one-on-one coaching, which it is. The only difference is I give you macros for each meal, example meals that you can make on your own, and meal options that you can order from them. So that's been really cool, and that's really starting to grow and pick up. So really looking forward to those two things in the next 6 months over this year.
That's awesome. Yeah, All In Meals is legit. Somebody just messaged me yesterday about it. Like, is this good? I was like, they're like the best I've seen. And
Yeah,
as far as like
for
macros, because it's either like
for
too little and not enough for guys. Guys have to buy like 2 meals from other meal prep services, and they just seem to like cover all of the bases.
Oh yeah, they have different meal sizes from lean to athlete, which ranges anywhere from about 350 calories up to about 1100 calories. They
Sweet.
have the most protein per um, per meal company at the cost that they have it at. It's phenomenal. So
Absolutely. And that you can even buy your meal prep from them. Like you can buy everything in bulk and like assemble it
yeah,
yourself.
they
It's
do. Yeah, you
crazy.
can
So
buy
smart.
bulk rice. Yeah, bulk rice, bulk veggies, bulk meat. You can get it. It's a one-stop shop. So it's awesome.
It's amazing. Awesome, Devin. Well, you do one-on-one coaching, you have your group program coming up, some personal training, but I'm guessing that's limited based on your
Very
schedule.
limited. Yeah,
Very
it's usually
limited.
like one spot maybe that I'll keep open or have available. So
Absolutely. Where can people find you to reach out about coaching? Follow you on Instagram. What's the best
yeah,
channel?
so Instagram is dgrow39, DGRO39, and then website is nxtlevel-training.com for any
Awesome.
inquiries, but you can also go straight through Instagram.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll get all of that linked below, but thank you so much for being here. And
Yeah,
again,
thanks
well,
for
yeah,
having
we'll
me.
get something else scheduled because this could be, yeah, so many
I love
questions.
it.
Such a good
Always a
time.
good time. And I'm always trying to figure out how we can do more things together. I wanna do another almost like energize and elevate, but different, where it's
Hmm.
more so just like you, me, and maybe one or two other people that I have in mind that I think would be a really
Hmm.
good fit, kind of like what you do at the golf course. But
Yeah.
just like a different group.
Hmm.
So I got a
Absolutely.
couple
I would love
ideas we'll
that.
have to talk about.
Yes. Same. I have some ideas for you. I'll shoot you a message about them, but
So
absolutely. The first of many collaborations.
yes, yes.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Devin. All right, everybody. Hopefully, you enjoyed that conversation. Thank you so much for listening to the Pre Diet Podcast. I'm your host, Allie Virtue. Make sure you are following the show on Spotify. Please leave a 5-star review, leave a comment, leave a question, maybe share with a friend. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and maybe share it with a friend. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you on the next one.